Hello and welcome to Two Therapists and a Microphone. I am Dr. Harrison Davis.
And I'm Dr. Aisha Dickerson.
Two Therapists and a Microphone is a show about mental health, relationships, and social issues that personally affect you. We broadcast live every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. on the Our Black Media Network.
Harrison and I are two licensed psychotherapists with decades of clinical experience, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear about the situations or dilemmas that you're going through. So send us your questions by visiting www.twotherapist.com and click on Ask Two Therapists at the top of the page.
Absolutely, because we want to hear from you guys. Go ahead and like and share this particular video, particularly for the parents who are out there, because we got a great show tonight. We're going to talk about an important topic. It's a topic that I learned some lessons on earlier in my journey as a parent. I should have signed up for some type of training when my child who's now 12, was around 4 or 5 years old. So that I wouldn't make some of the missteps that I made with my parenting. What about you, Aisha? Did you have to do some research on parenting styles, or it just came naturally to you?
Well, so I'll say that I had already a lot of research in parenting styles because historically I've done a lot of family counseling, I've done a lot of co parent coordination, I've worked with a
Oh,
lot of children. But it's just really different when you're in that situation. It's like
yes,
I
it
want
is.
to bring in my clinical skills, and at the same time, it's me who's being victimized, and I'm using victimized lightly here. And I am the one who is needing to give out the punishment. So
Yeah.
all that soft parenting, that's not me. I'll say that I'm stern is the word
Okay.
I'll use.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. I can remember, before we bring our guest on, I can remember years ago, before I had my child, two particular clients. One was a single white female in her, what was it, early 50s. And she had a teenage daughter around 15 or 16. The mom, she didn't know what to do. She brought in the daughter. The daughter was disrespectful. The daughter called her mom a bitch right
Oh,
there in the
oh Lord.
middle
See,
of
that triggers me.
the
I just
temp.
want to backhand them on behalf of the client.
And I'm trying to help the mom to create some healthier boundaries and to stop enabling, the kid with the behavior. And the mom kept saying, "But you don't understand." I was like, "You got to get this under control. And here are some things you can do." And so the girl, she didn't like what I was saying, so she
Did she
kept telling
start
the mom.
calling you names too?
She wait, one more. She said, "Is he a therapist?" So she was getting mad at me and stormed out of the room. And I was like, "Oh no, you got to get this together. I'm willing to help you." And the second example is very similar to, there was just a couple around the same age and had a tween son. He was just as disrespectful, and I was trying to tell them how they can take away things from him, and he loved his video games in order to influence his behavior. And I said, you can who paid for the video console? And of course they did. And he stayed out late at night and stuff like that, and they didn't want to take the console. They didn't want to disconnect it. And if he stayed out late to 1 in the morning on a school night, I was like, you don't have to let him in. You show them, show him that you are the parent. And similar situation, I said, you can go even further than that. If he's disrespectful in the house, cursing at you, you can just take everything out of his room. You're the one that bought everything, purchased
Hmm.
everything, and you take everything out of the walls, all his stuff, take his TV out. And it just kept asking me, where are we going to put it? Where are we going to put it? I said, that's it. That's
They just
irrelevant.
that's ridiculous.
And so the ironic part is, I found myself when my daughter was around 6, 7, 8, in a somewhat similar situation where I wasn't stern, I
Mm.
wasn't firm, and she was demonstrating some 6-year-old disrespectful behavior. And I was like, oh my God, look at this. You're right. When you're in the situation, it is very different.
Right.
I was even surprised at myself. So I'm glad that you asked this person to come on, because I got some questions. Now things have changed. Things have changed for me over the years, but I'm happy you have someone here who can talk about
Yeah.
parenting and trying to discipline your children.
All right. So today we are inviting Shambria Stoll to join us on Two Therapists and a Microphone. Shambria is
Hello.
from Auburn, Alabama. She believes the bravest thing you can do is to begin to understand your own story. Her focus is with teens and young adults, where she provides a safe, affirming, non judgmental space for healing and support. Shambria specializes in mindfulness based interventions, cognitive behavioral therapy, and works from a holistic perspective. Her goal is to create a space where you can feel valued and empowered. Thanks for coming.
That sounds
Thank
nice.
you for having me. I'm excited. I'm really excited about this topic.
Me too. Well, let everyone know that I refer all children to Shambria. In fact, someone called me yesterday, and I liked them. I liked the story. I really thought the child could use some services, and
Mhm.
immediately I was like, but I don't see children, so let me get
Yeah, you
God
do give me a
bless
lot
you,
of them.
connected
Shambria.
to Shambria. It takes a special person.
It's fun.
So
You are never bored with work with kids.
okay, well, so one of the things that Harrison and I talked about was that maybe one of the reasons we don't want to work with kids is because we have our own kids that we deal with, and we have punishments that we have to, I'll say, dole out. I want to
Yep.
start by asking, well, first, before I do that, I want to show a clip that brought this topic to our mind. And this is it's on TikTok. I'm going to share my screen and let you all see
Okay.
what was supposedly a video of a 12-year-old boy who destroyed his mother's apartment because she took his cell phone. So let me say that Harrison hasn't seen this video yet.
That's right.
So,
I'm gonna click add stream, and you're on.
all right.
Oh, that's a marble. That's a granite countertop.
Mm-hmm.
Broke the glass.
The refrigerator.
How old?
It says 12, but I did more research, and the mother said the child was actually 15.
She's crying.
Yeah, I
Mm.
hear that. I hear the crying in the background. I missed that before, I believe.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Oh Lord. I mean, just tore up every inch.
Like
Like
renter's
she was
insurance doesn't cover
robbed.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She's gonna be evicted too. I'm sure.
Oh, it's an apartment.
Hmm.
Oh, that TV.
The TV. Hmm.
Wow.
Take the baby bag.
Oh, there's a baby in the house too. Looks like.
Oh, oh wow. So this
Look at the toilet. Did you see the toilet?
and the
I did.
wall.
So
He
went
was
through
violent.
each bathroom.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I see the toilet. He broke it.
Yeah.
How do
missed-
you do that?
I missed that the first time I saw this.
Yeah, it's made of porcelain. You can break it, but somebody's gonna pay for it.
Wow.
And it looks like she takes great care of him with the TVs that
Right.
I've seen.
Nice room. Got
Yeah, there's a baby's crib. Oh wow, the laptop.
Mm. See, I'm getting mad now. So
I was like, where is he? All right. Well, that's all I need.
okay, I'm gonna stop it now. Wow.
So
Wow.
That's
when I
cute.
look more into it, the mother says that the child was not 12, was 15.
Okay.
And that her friend shared the video. She was not thinking that her friend was going to share the video. And she wanted to set the record straight. After everyone was saying, you ought to whoop them, you got to jump on them, all of that stuff. She says that her child has a history of mental illness. And so my question was, number one, Shambria, how do we determine if what we need to do is discipline a child or get them to some therapy?
Mm,
I think it varies. So I think it depends on how long has this behavior been happening. Like, is it something that started when he was younger and it progressively got worse and there were no interventions? I think another determination is safety. Like, immediately I was concerned for her safety, and I saw
Mhm.
the crib and I was concerned for the baby's safety. Um, and so I think another thing also is the remorse. And so that was something that I kept wondering of, like, how does this kid feel after looking at that? Is there remorse? Is there not remorse? Is he blacking out? Is he not remembering? Like, what is
Okay.
the intentionality behind that? And I think once I got those questions, then I would be able to better determine. But the safety issue, there needs to be some intervention, especially I think I heard her say that in another video that she may be a single mom. Um,
Okay.
and so kids these age, that size, a boy, single mom, there's a safety issue that I think needs a lot
mm.
more of an intense intervention.
Yeah, as I was looking at it, I was questioning how violent, the kid might be with the extreme amount of damage, that he caused. And you talked about, whether or not he blacked out or not. Because I'm just wondering, I think a number of us have been angry before. We've even seen
Hmm.
our kids angry,
Mhm.
but they've never done anything like that before. And he went through an entire house, so it seems intentional,
Mhm.
And what was he thinking, when he broke the first television? Or the first mirror, and that tells me that he may not be able to control, some of his anger. You talked about the safety,
Mhm.
that is there. What would you tell that mom at this point?
At that point, I think she needs to step in and get interventions. I've experienced, honestly, more than one or two experiences like this. Dr.
Really?
Dickerson has literally witnessed me be injured because of clients like this. I
I have.
had a broken foot. Um, the first thing I would tell her, if you don't feel safe at home, I've had a client, I think it was my internship, where it was a similar behavior, to be honest. And we ended up having to get social or child protective services involved. And like mom called and was like, I don't feel safe with my child. Like, I need resources. So they were able to connect her with possible group homes, if that was the case, possible treatment that they could help fund, because if they can't afford it or they don't have insurance. And they also provided her with a case manager or just day services, because clearly the distress tolerance isn't there. And so if you're out in Target and mom takes away the phone, you can't have the same behavior in Target. And so figuring out like what's the overall safety for that, to if you need a day program to like work through your distress tolerance and build that up so you can come back in, or even in-home services. There's a lot of like wraparound services that she may need.
Hmm.
So, if the child is indeed that dangerous and a safety issue in the home, would the child not be a safety issue at the group home and a foster home? Like, how do you handle that? Do we keep some straps around, strap them down when needed, a little taser? I don't
Yes.
know.
So there's a lot of I didn't know about the resources that they had, but for my experience, like I worked at a therapeutic school and a lot of the kids had the same behavior. So we got trained in safety measures of how to restrain, distress tolerance, certain medications there.
Mhm.
We would also do and put kids in holds if we had to. Um, and we were all trained properly of how to keep ourselves safe and also keeping them safe. So there would be times where I would be in a hold with a 8-year-old kid who could take me out, but we would have to be in a hold for 30 minutes and we would rotate out and do it in a safe way. And
I'm
then we would
glad you
also,
rotate because I was about to say you got
oh
to
yeah.
I guess you have to be strong to hold somebody for 30 minutes.
Yeah. So there would be like 4 people in a hold. And it's everyone's so calm and so trained that not a taser, um, that everyone was able to kind of de-escalate the situation, and we're all trained to do it in a safe way. And then we can kind of teach those same things to the family members at home if for some reason they do need to go into a hold or do need to restrain at home.
Wow. So times have changed because I don't remember any of this from any of my friends when I was a kid, when I was a child,
Yeah.
at school, my neighborhood. Sure, there were some bad kids who did things I would never
Hmm.
do, but I don't remember anyone being that violent. And you talked about the parent. Um, being afraid in the home and sort of using that as a measure, fear for their safety. But what are some more concrete things that parents can pay attention to realize it's more extreme than the norm, and they may need to take advantage of some of those resources that you talked about?
I think starting with like recognizing your kids' behavior. So learning their behavior of what is their distress tolerance. If they drop a pencil off their desk, are they going to flip the desk and have a freak out?
Mm.
Kind of
Mm.
having big reactions to small things. I feel like that can be a big indicator. Um,
Okay.
I know a lot of kids I've worked with personally. You can kind of see those warning signs of like they might start to get tired, or they might start to just talk a little absurd, or they might not respect just smaller boundaries, I guess. And kind of recognizing those smaller things that can eventually build up to those big ones. So I guess the distress tolerance would be the number one thing that I would begin to observe with this situation.
Yeah, because I asked that question because I'm looking at the video and I'm hearing your stories about what you've done, and Dr. Dickerson was there to help also.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't the first time that
There's no way.
15-year-old has done that.
No way.
I believe it may have gradually escalated, and perhaps I don't know the mom, I don't know who she is or anything, or any help that she has, but she may not have realized how extreme things are and making a tough decision, to get
Mhm.
some help for her kid. That's why I was asking about that. I'm pretty sure this wasn't the first time he
Mhm.
ransacked a room.
And just straight up defiant behavior too. Like when it
Mhm.
comes to just basic communication, are they defiant towards just you, teachers, friends? Like what
Mm.
does that look like?
So that's a good point there, because when you said Dr. Dickerson was there to help, my help was more like escape. Get out of there. You do not deserve to be abused by these children. But also, we're thinking about defiance, or by we, I mean me. Someone who is 12 and is tearing up the house, in my mind, should have gotten their behinds whipped at 2, 3, 4. You didn't strike enough fear in them
I
Mhm.
at a
agree.
young age.
I agree.
Mhm.
I don't fear for my safety. My
Mhm.
children and I, we have a great relationship, but
Hmm. You do.
they learned respect early on, and I may have had to use my hands a little bit. Listen, we don't have to talk about what I did with my hands, but they were
It was
under control.
appropriate.
Well, because I have one who is now bigger than me, and she's an athlete and she's stronger than me, but it would never cross her mind that she should
Yeah.
fight me or tear up my house.
You kind of set what the boundaries were early on.
Exactly.
And I think that's another perspective to take in is like, what's the size of obviously, like this kid is breaking toilets, breaking marble cabinets, like that can cause a lot of pain to yourself. So to
Mhm.
continue to destroy through that, like the kid's got to be strong. The kid's got to be big. He's 15 years old. Hormones are all out of whack. And just the gender dynamics as well. That I feel like that could also play a huge role.
Yeah,
So,
because girls could do the same thing.
Mhm.
well, that's true, but tell me more about what you think might happen with the gender dynamics there.
Just from my personal experience, I feel like that preteen boy age, the hormones are all out of whack. I literally kind of imagine teenage boys working from their primal brain.
Okay,
And
that makes
so
sense. Yeah.
seeing like a female being less powerful and recognizing like, hey, I can strike fear in her, like that's a power shift.
Mm.
And so kind of setting that power dynamic straight at an early age of like how you were saying, like setting the law down, like this is what it is, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, like these are the boundaries, this is what happens if you don't respect them, kind of like a natural consequence. I like to use that term a lot too. There's just a natural consequence to these actions, and if they don't really respect that or try and push those boundaries, you kind of have to reinforce them and stick to them, because it's easy to give up. It's tiring.
Yes,
It
it
is.
is. And I could share with you guys, you brought up some very interesting points there, consequences and, the power thing. My parenting style was somewhat different than Dr. Dickerson's,
Mhm.
where I agree with you. You got to set those boundaries early. I must admit, I did not with my 12-year-old when she was 3, 4, 5. I'm trying to be Mr. Nice Daddy, get her everything that she wants. I spoiled her, but I did not correct, some of the unwanted behavior, and it would have been much easier at that time, because I didn't want to do the things that I had to endure, as a kid. I said, I'm not going to
Okay.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
Times have changed. But let's start here. What do you want to say to those parents who may be still in that stage where I was, for whatever reason, just not creating those healthy or being consistent with setting those healthy expectations for the kids. They may not know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I can always praise the good behavior, but I learned that wasn't enough. The
Nope.
question was, what do you do when they do something that you don't want them to do? What do you say to those parents who are still in that stage?
Mm-hmm. I think I would say it's easy to get kind of lost in a forest. Like you get focused
Yeah.
on one tree. So to kind of pull back, like what are your goals by doing this? How do you want your little child to be when they're an adult? These small reinforcers, they shape who they are. And so to kind of ask yourself, like, who do I want? Like, what are some values I want to instill to my child? And I think that's a good kind of grounding technique to go back to when you can get lost in that, kind of just settling or just kind of just giving into whatever the kid wants. Like, what is this benefiting them long run? I also imagine like a butterfly coming out of cocoon. If you help the butterfly out of the cocoon, like it dies because it's not building up that strength. And
That's
so I feel
right.
like it's everyone's duty involved in a child's life to help build up that strength and that distress tolerance so they can be successful adults. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're in high school, you can't have your phone at school, right? That's just a very
Middle
black
school
and white
too.
rule.
Mhm.
So if your teacher takes your phone away, are you going to do that in a school? Because there's bigger consequences. At that point, you could get charges pressed on you.
Yeah.
And that's just a realistic thing. And that's conversations I've had, especially with my Black teens who've had this behavior. I'm like, listen, like we're on a real level, like in this neutral moment, like realistically speaking, if you act like this outside of this environment, what's going to happen? Because not everyone's trained to properly handle this situation.
Okay.
Two, we see what's happening to Black boys and with the law enforcement, unfortunately. And so recognizing like maybe they're not trained on how to handle the situation. So if they come, that situation may not end up the same. And so really like painting a light of like, this is very real. These consequences that we have, like they suck, but also once you're turned 18, like there's not much I can help you with if you act like this outside.
Yeah, those are some very good questions you brought up. I wish I had asked those questions myself at that age. When she was that age, thinking about, what type of adult or even teenager I want her to be. That, and you're right, just being lost in that forest, because I got this 4-year-old. I just want us to have fun, but then things changed when it just became obvious, and then trying to create those expectations and being consistent with my reaction when she's 10, 11, 12 is much better. It was much tougher than having a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old.
Yeah, because they're still cute then.
Exactly.
Yes.
Even like hard to imagine that 3-year-old as like a 14-year-old, it wouldn't be the same response, the same reaction. And just because you're disciplining doesn't mean you're not showing your kid love. I feel like it's quite the opposite. Like it's tough love, but like that's still kind of like just that circle of
it's
that
some balance.
It's
what I learned. So H and I, we have different styles, and I'm
We
still,
do.
but I'm on the road that you're on. Let me just tell you,
come to Aisha style. Because see, what I'm always thinking is, I don't want them to come back to my house. When they leave, I want them to be gone forever. Not that I don't love them.
Independent, responsible adults.
Right. And that's why you have to clean up.
You want to build those strong butterflies.
Right. Nobody wants a nasty woman. You got to clean up. Don't spend your money on stupid stuff, because you'll need to pay your bills, and I'm not going to pay them for you. I mean, honestly, I might if they need it in the future, but I don't want you to even have to come and ask me for my money when I'm retired and free from children. Don't go to jail, because you know that your mother will leave you there for at least one night. I'll come and get you later. My children are not built for jail. They are suburban kids.
Okay.
Sometimes they like to pretend like they are hard, but they don't know anything about the hood. So don't put yourself in that situation. My daughter doesn't even know how to fight. Now mine can fight. That's another story for a different day. But don't put yourself in situations where you are fighting
Yeah.
and you don't
Yep.
know what weapons the other person has. Because I know
Mhm.
for me, I'm not going to lose a fight. If I am, I'm going to win by any means necessary. So
All
don't
right.
end up being in a fight with somebody like me who won't fight fair.
Yeah. So a question that I have, Shambria,
Mhm.
I'm learning to be uh more consistent with correcting disrespectful behavior, because I do recognize, just like you said, Aisha, when she gets older in high school and they're already, in middle school, she wasn't following directions and there were some consequences, and I don't want her to continue that. So I've had to, step up my game just a little bit. But the thing that I discovered with me, I'm pretty sure there's some other parents out there too. Where is that line? What's appropriate, with correcting behavior? For some reason in my head, any little thing is crossing the line. And so I had to reassure myself that this punishment that I'm making her do, clean your room, clean the bathroom, give me your phone, give me that computer, give me that tablet for the whole week. No, you're not going to Six Flags. And to you, Aisha, that may sound small, but
Oh, no,
there's
it's not small.
for some of us, it's like, I go back and ask, oh, was that too much? What's
It's not
what's
too much either.
what's the line? Because I do know people who get a belt, who get a switch,
Mhm.
to reinforce things. How do we figure out what's the line?
I think it varies person to person, and so trying out different things that works for you. So for families who are kind of sharing the same experience you're talking about, where it's like I messed up maybe a little bit at the beginning, like I want to kind of begin to reinforce some other things
Yep.
now. I almost frame it as like a family activity, like do a crafts night as a family.
Mhm.
Everyone sits down, like get a poster board and identify maybe some common things that are happening. So like some common ones I have of kids coming home not doing their homework or not doing their chores instead of just going to their phone, or and just going to their phone, and then automatically parents are taking away different things and the kids like confused, or maybe the consequences aren't consistent. So I have families and kids like work as a team. Like I'm like, do a pizza night, sit down at the dinner table, you guys find like what are some common issues that you notice reoccurring, list those out, and then you guys work as a team to find some consequences that work for all of you. That way you can have this poster board of like, when this person's homework isn't done by this time that you all agreed on, then this consequence happens. And kind of working at there. And I like to make it very black and white and that the kids included on it. And that's kind of like an entryway into that, to where it's not completely blindsided, because on the flip side, coming from the kids' perspective, that's kind of a whole new trick to them. That's a whole new territory, new environment. And so wanting to add grace to them and kind of slowly teach them how to do it and kind of introduce it if it hasn't already been introduced.
I
I
like
like
that.
that. Yeah, except that if I allowed my kids to come up with their punishments, it
I
would
was
be
thinking that
something like,
same
But see,
thing.
if I act up, I don't get to eat dinner. Like my little one, she never
no,
wants to eat
so that
anyway.
wouldn't be, I'd be like, be real. Like, come on now. Like, what is something that we can really agree on?
Mhm.
And being like, okay, this is what we
Do we
agree
have to
on.
agree? It's like I feel like I'm negotiating her punishment.
With
Yes.
tiny
And so
terrorists. You're
that's why it
negotiating with
kind of,
tiny
each
terrorists.
family will figure out what works for them.
I like it though.
The
I
younger ones really like it. Like they're like, "Oh yeah, having my phone away for 30 minutes, like that makes sense." You can kind of just trick them a little bit.
my daughter
Have
would
pizza
never
and a
offer
soda.
that.
You know what I have done before is allowed, and this is probably not the great idea, with two girls, allowing them to say what they think the other one's punishments should be. But they never
Wow.
disagree with what the big sister never disagrees with what the little sister comes up with. She's like, okay, I guess that's fair. And since you
Yeah.
can't come up with it yourself, the big sister, she's worse. Her punishments are not
Yeah.
so great. Now, on the flip side, I have a friend who she has a great relationship with her kids as well. But what I've noticed with her, even from when they were younger, is as soon as they say something out of line, she, without hesitation, will pop them in the mouth.
Mm.
Like, and it's always like caught me off guard, like, oh Lord, she just slapped the mess out that child. But they tear up and they get it together, and then they're right back on track.
Mhm.
I
Is it
saw that a
okay?
lot as a kid.
Well, okay, I did too. I thought that was like obsolete. I thought it was gone like
Yeah,
polio,
me
but
too. Me
apparently
too.
it's still around. So, is it, in your professional opinion, ever appropriate to put your hands on your children?
Mm.
Oof, that is, in my professional opinion,
You can give me your professional and your
And
personal
personal.
opinion.
Yep.
Mhm.
I think in my professional opinion, I don't think that should always be the first resort.
Okay.
And I think maybe the communication along the way, because I don't know, it's a fine line, because I'm very much like kids should have bodily autonomy, and there
Yeah.
should be preventative measures, but also a pop on the hiney
Yep.
is not too bad, but that's different than like going out and getting a belt and like having blisters on your back.
Or
Mhm.
slapping your mouth.
Yes, exactly. So there's like, it varies. In my personal opinion, I think that I grew up getting spankings, but I was the type of kid, like I was one and done. Like I think I got one spanking from my grandpa once, and like that's all I got from him my whole life. Like, yes,
Mhm.
sir, from here on out. Um,
Lucky
but
you.
That's all you needed.
that's what worked for me as a kid, and so each kid's gonna be different. What worked for me was different for my brother, and so we had two different just response styles growing up. And so I think taking the time to figure out what that individual kid responds to, how well they respond, is going to be the best bet, because you can spank a kid all day and they don't respond. They're like, okay, next.
That was my youngest. I think I spanked her one time when she was small and she laughed.
Yeah,
And
I would be like,
Wow.
okay. So
Yeah.
that's not going to work for her.
yeah,
Wow.
But I could put her in, lock her in the high chair and she couldn't get out, and that was what she hated. Like, you just
Wow.
sit there.
you found what worked. I
Yeah.
guess.
So I think what Aisha was talking about, and some people I've talked to with also, and I guess I struggle with this a little bit, trying to get the appropriate punishment for the crime, and how severe should it be. And I do agree it would have been much easier, when they're 3 and 4, a little slap on the hiney or the back of the leg, and be consistent with that so that you don't have to deal with it when they're older. But some parents have different, boundaries, on how far they're gonna go with that. So that's why I was asking the question earlier, what's the line? And it just sounds like whatever you're comfortable doing with that. But I can share with you guys when my daughter, I think she was around 3, in the high chair still eating,
Mhm.
and she kept putting food on the floor because she knew I wasn't gonna do a damn thing. She was, and I kept warning her for like 2 weeks. And
2
finally,
weeks.
2 weeks. I kept warning her. I didn't do anything until I just became frustrated, and I grab her hand, pop, pop, pop. The look on her face was shock.
Shock.
It was shock. It's like, what is that? What? And so she stopped, and I felt bad a little bit after that, but she did do it. I just can't imagine doing that or something close to that now that she's 12,
Yeah.
But
I can.
some people do.
It won't be a pop on the hand, but
But
I
even like this 15-year-old in that video, like, do you think whooping would have worked for him? He probably would have whooped her back.
Yeah, it's too late
Possibly.
then. It's too late.
Yeah.
So Rashada says, I always have dissonance with this issue because we teach no spanking, but I spank my
Exactly.
son.
Okay, how old is your son? Because I believe possibly, it's just a theory, if that mom had spanked him appropriately to correct him, when he was 3, 4, 5 years old, when she can manage that, she might have fewer issues at this age. Like she's Rashada said her son's 5. Yeah, that's an appropriate age. Just a little slap on the back of the leg, But when you're 15, Shambria, do you recommend? Like even if the dad was in
that's
the
where
home,
things get dangerous.
I don't know if
It's a
I
real
would
fight
recommend
now.
it at that point. And I think this is where I kind of go back and forth with it, is because like I understand, like, yes, I'm an adult now, so that comes with a certain level of responsibility and respect. But like, I wouldn't want to be spanked now as an adult if I did something wrong. And
I
so,
wouldn't allow it.
yeah, oh, exactly. And so kind of having that or that same idea of like, they're growing up to be like young adults now, they're preteens or teenagers. Like, is this a way that I want to teach them to communicate for the future?
yeah.
Well, so I'm assuming we're thinking that at an older age, they should be able to communicate. That you're
Mhm.
supposed to be able to
Mhm.
talk to them,
This
and
one,
they can
he
understand.
seems to not be able to communicate. He's having a lot of emotions. His form of communication seems to be aggression. But I think another factor that kind of takes into play of even like growing that was different from me growing up. And it's the technology, the phones. Like
Mm,
this reaction to having your phone taken away
Or
is
PlayStation.
absurd. It looks like a heroin addict who is trying to find some heroin.
mhm.
Like it's truly looks like you're having like withdrawal symptoms. It does nothing else matters besides I want access to this phone. And this is something that I've been seeing a lot in my teens since COVID happened. That isolation, being at home at school, the only form of communication and that social interaction for the last few years and these prime like developmental stages for these kids has been your phone. And so you become almost like codependent on it. And I think that's like a whole nother layer into this situation of like no one in like who is going to have this type of reaction to having their phone taken away? Someone who's like addicted to their phone.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
I
of
venture
the
to I venture to say that for the parents, they're also had been giving the children their electronics, is what I see. It's like their
Mhm.
babysitter. I don't want to be
Exactly.
bothered.
Yep.
We're all
But
here
on the
together.
flip
Here's an
side, like
iPad.
I hear you. Like the pandemic has worn out just the average human. You got to come home and then see these kids. You got to cook. You got to clean. Like I can understand how like that could just be an easy like I just need to breathe. And
Yeah,
I
we were
understand
home.
on the parent
Now
side, but
they were home. We were home. Everybody was home. Trying to do their work on the internet, trying to do their
Mhm.
school work. So I hear you when you say that the kids are sort of desperate. For that human engagement when it was almost cut off, and now we have technology where they can just talk to each other, engage with each other. My daughter plays this little game, Roblox. Is that it?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
And then she's on FaceTime with her friends on one electronic device, watching each other, and then the Roblox is on another device, so
That's
they can
nice.
see each other and they play. It's a fun little kids game. I've been through it before, but I can just tell how much they love it. And when I have to tell her to get off because it's time to go to bed, she gets angry about that. So I've seen a little bit of that this strong desire to keep that human interaction going.
Mhm.
And on one hand, you want your kids to be social, and
Yep.
also it's like she's playing Roblox. She's not doing anything bad, so that's a plus. But I do get the idea that these children are starting to feel entitled to
Mhm.
these. When I talk about my kids' phones, I don't say your phone. I call it my other phone,
Yeah.
and my third phone,
Yeah.
and
I had to start doing that too. That's not your phone. That's my phone. I'm
Mhm.
letting you use it. That account is in my name. I pay it. I'm just allowing you to hold the phone and make phone calls. And she looked at me like I was speaking a different language. I said, "Oh, you want me to
Mhm.
show you? Let me show you because I can disconnect the phone.
well, and that's
I
what I was
told you
about
I'm
to
on your
say.
road, Aisha. I'm on the same road.
I was about to say, did I teach you that? Because I don't have to physically take the phone. I go right in the app and turn it off. And that was a brick. You don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have cell phone
See,
service.
that's a tool that a lot of parents don't know about. That's something I'm worried about. I can't keep up with technology. I already feel like a grandma. And so like years down, I can't like I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep up with the continuous evolution of technology.
Yeah, but what some of us parents have learned is that is important to the
It's
kids, and I
crucial.
can use that as a reward or a punishment,
Mhm.
and taking that away, can deter certain behaviors. That's what
Mhm.
some of us have learned, and I'm glad that we have that. But I do want to ask before I forget. We were talking about spankings, and when I grew up, we call it getting whoopings.
Mhm.
Um, what is appropriate age, if you can answer
Oh,
this,
that's a
for
good
parents
question.
to
When do we stop?
stop spanking or getting the belt or switch to their kid? For those parents who do that, when is a good time to stop that practice?
I think that's such a subjective question. I really do think it varies person to person, kid to kid. Um, I think maybe looking for like the behaviors, like are they responding to it? Are they able to hit you back? Is it able to be resolved with other various ways than just basic communication? Um, I think there's a lot that goes into it. I I would say maybe like at a, I don't know, maybe like that preteen age is a
Mhm.
good sweet spot to kind of start the transition of like, let's sit down, like let's talk this out. Maybe not going to that as first resort. But I think again, it varies family to family, kid to kid, what's working best for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, gotcha.
So my next question is, what are some special considerations for children who have developmental disabilities? Because they're bigger, but a
Mhm.
lot of times, it's like the
This is my
name says, they
specialty
have
right there.
they. I know,
and
that's
some
why
are
I'm asking you.
impulsive.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. That was my background of getting into this field of working with people with disabilities. So I've worked with all ages, big, small, all sizes. I think some special considerations is like the cognitive level, where that like are they on a level of a 8-year-old but in the body of a 30-year-old, or
mhm.
Mm.
their size, are they able to communicate? Usually like I'm pretty good at like reading behaviors. Like I can almost see like the warning signs in body language. And so taking that into consideration, if you recognize that someone's like getting dysregulated or triggered and they're not able to verbally communicate that, kind of taking that initiative to remove them from the situation or remove whatever's triggering them and kind of de-escalating that. So a lot of mindfulness techniques is something that I like to teach for that population, and self-regulation tools. So like deep breathing, movements that use both sides of the brain. So like cross lateral movement. And so I'll do like cross marches where we'll stand up and opposite hand touches opposite knee and you kind of march back and forth. And that opposite movement is like bilateral stimulating. And so it kind of helps regulate your nervous system to get you back down to just a state of homeostasis, to where you can jump out of that primal brain and kind of come back to. So those are some skills that I've picked up on all my years with working with individuals with disabilities to kind of help regulate those situations.
I like that. I didn't know anything about
No,
that.
I've never heard of that before.
So we had
There's
a
some good
comment.
books about that too.
So we have a comment. It's becoming a huge problem with the teens. I see so much so that we have to do crisis intervention when it's taken away because they're suicidal. I believe Rashad is talking about
With
the
the phone.
phones and maybe the
Mhm.
PlayStations. So the question I can get from her comment, what should we be paying attention to with their reaction to our punishments? And maybe that could be a sign of perhaps it's too harsh for them. What should we be looking out about their ability to deal with what we are doling out to them?
In regards to the phone, or
The phone, electronics, anything, because it sounds like some of these kids are going into crisis, just like the
yeah.
video.
Or I mean, in addition to that, what can we do to keep them from getting addicted to them in the first place?
I
'Cause
think
I
there's
guess
a
that's like,
lot more like those preventative steps that we can do before they get to that point, because
okay.
I've
Yeah.
also seen that too. If you notice like your kid is coming home and the first thing, like they're eager to just get on their phone, like they're having that, it's like an addiction. If they're spending too much time on their phone,
Yep.
that's kind of, if they're losing sleep because of it, or they're not doing good on schoolwork, creating boundaries with electronics. So
I
coming home, oh, go on.
Oh, I'm I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to create a rule. Sitting at the table eating dinner.
Mhm.
Put the phone down, or we watching a movie, the family together. In the family room, put the phone down. And
Mhm.
then she in return did it to me when I pick up my phone to check an
Mm.
email. So did the same thing. But you are right. Creating those healthy boundaries and
Mhm.
expectations are great because she walks through the door, from school with that
Mhm.
phone in her hand. But
Mhm.
if we don't do anything, they're going to continue with it. So I like that idea you just
Mhm.
mentioned about creating the boundaries.
I especially like how you mentioned no phones at the table. That's how I grew up. I feel like that's helps so much with just healthy eating, being in tune with the day, just a mental break from the phone. And I think that's a good way to start that distance from the phone, of like when you're at the table or when you're eating, like don't get on the phone. Don't get into the mindless scrolling to where you're not paying attention to your body's needs or the signals that your body's sending you. That's like a rule. I also like when I'm at dinner with my friends, I'm like, don't be on your phone. Like that's rude. I might
Yes.
as well just
Yeah,
stay at
that's me
home and
too.
not spend money on dinner.
Right. I agree. And you know, it's different from now. I know that you could probably have a cell phone at the table when you were younger, Shambria, but when Harrison and I were younger,
I wasn't. My grandpa was Amish growing up, so I have
okay.
a different background.
Oh, my bad. That's different. If your grandpa was Amish, your upbringing may be a little different from the average.
Just a little
For
bit.
just a
Just
tad.
saying.
But you know, the phone was all the way somewhere else. So I've
Mhm.
been considering not just saying don't bring don't be on your phone, but don't even bring your phone in here. Then you won't know if it's ringing. Now, one thing I would add is, as for us as parents, maybe set a better example,
Yep.
because I don't just
Mhm.
check emails. I answer phone calls. I have my Apple Watch. I could put my phone in another room, and I'm looking at my watch whenever a message comes through. So that's me speaking to myself. Set a better
Mhm.
example too. But I also tell my children I make money when I'm on my phone. What are you doing? I mean, you don't make money when you're on yours, so it's not the same.
Yeah, I've been through the same thing. Just that, to sort of to do the to practice what I'm preaching to her, and
Mhm.
she reminds me, so it's made it easier. And then also, like you guys mentioned, going out with friends. I went out with some buddies one time, and they were on their phones, at the table, at this like sports bar, and I was the only one out on my phone. And it's like we've become used to that type of engagement,
It's
through the
normal.
electronic device, and we're forgetting that we're here in front of each other. And so that was an eye-opening experience for me, and making sure my daughter doesn't do that in front of other people. And but
Mhm.
Aisha, you're right. It was so new to me. I didn't have a phone, aging myself until I was out of undergrad.
Mhm.
And
I think
so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how important it was, but now I do, and we can regulate her time on it.
I think another good thing or habits for adults to get in and kids to get in is like the first 30, 45 minutes when you wake up, like you don't need to be on the phone that early. Like
Yeah.
just kind of let your brain wake up, let your brain just get what it needs.
What? That's how your brain wakes up. First thing I
No,
do
but
is
like,
check my bank account. Did I get
no,
paid last
stop.
night?
Because in your brain's like, I need more of this. It's like the first thing it's seeing.
Okay.
Like the first thing
Okay.
every morning I wake up, I go outside, take my dog out, and I just stand in the grass. That's just my little holistic self. But
That
I just
sounds
like
so
to just
peaceful.
I
almost
know,
surround
right?
myself. Or I like listen to podcasts instead of like searching on my phone. And just kind of allowing like those first 30 minutes just to not be indulged in that phone. And that's kind of like setting the tone for the rest of the day.
I
I
like
want to
that.
be like you when I grow up.
Me too. And
In
any
bed by
others?
9.
So you don't wake up, oh my God, you gotta get ready for school. Let's get together, wash your hair. Where's your shoes? You got the wrong pants on. You don't do any of that.
I think growing up, my anxiety has been so bad in the mornings. I wake up extra early, anyways. So I have leisure time. I water the plants, go outside, just see the life.
That sounds so peaceful. So, what other advice would you have for us as we're approaching the end of today's great podcast, by the way, for parents? We talked about the use of the cell phone and, the significance of that, but what other good nuggets can you give us? Because you've given us some very good intervention strategies to use. What else can you share with us?
I think for parents, taking care of yourself and allowing yourself grace. A lot of times I've seen with a lot of families I've worked with, a common theme is a lot of parents don't have that unhealed trauma from their childhood. And that's kind of bleeding over into how they raise and communicate with their kids. And so taking that time to kind of explore those triggers within yourself, and kind of working through things that you may need to heal through, to better your kid, and allowing yourself that grace and taking time out for yourself is, even if it's like a minute or two, like 1 or 2 minutes, like completely dedicated to yourself, serves you better than none. And so parents with this high level of stress with these kids, like locking yourself in the bathroom for a minute and just like taking a few deep breaths and just spending some time for yourself and giving yourself grace in those challenging moments. Because I would lose my mind if that mom in that TikTok video, like she needs some time to herself just to process.
If I
Yeah.
were that kid's parent, I would call Child Protective Services
Yeah.
myself,
Immediately. I
and
would
you
be
guys
that
come
would have
pick them up.
absolutely. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I would have suggested to
There's
her.
nothing else I can do.
But that
And
is
at that point, I
extreme.
would have, if she wouldn't have, I may have even called, because fear for the other child's life.
Well,
Yeah.
that part too, the baby.
Yeah,
that
but
we
that's
missed in the world.
extreme what we saw, and
That is-
you've given us some valuable information about the parents who don't have to deal with those extreme behaviors, but we can still tighten up some of the things that we are doing. So I'm happy about that. Dr. Aisha, any final thoughts from you?
Yes, I think one of my questions in the beginning was, when do we determine if it's a discipline issue or when our child needs counseling? I want to get your thoughts on that, right? Just in a couple of minutes, Shambria, because my thought is, everybody can go to counseling. There's nothing, there doesn't
Yeah.
have to be anything wrong. But what do you think?
I was going to say the same thing. If you notice there's discipline issue, then you can also do counseling. I think at any point, if you notice there's like, if you're not working together or there's just some miscommunication where you can get extra skills,
Yeah.
communication, whatever it is, like go seek therapy and get the help. Because even if it's not an issue with just the kid, maybe you guys can work together to better communicate, or they can provide you skills on how to handle these situations.
Absolutely.
So I
Thank you.
guess whenever you see if you need a discipline consistently, then maybe get some help. Or if there's certain points where you're like throwing your hands up, you can always ask for help.
Yeah, I like that. There are parenting classes out there. A
Mhm.
lot of them are online. I didn't do it, but I should have. But it's never too late to sign up for those things. But I like some of the things that we talked about. The biggest nugget that I got from you, is asking yourself, do I want my kid to display this behavior when they're older? Because what's gonna be the consequences?
Right.
No, she's 10 now, doing these little dramatic outburst things, because she didn't get what she wants. But what about when she's 19, 20 years old on a college campus, trying to get her education, and she can't manage her emotions when she doesn't get her way? That's a
Mhm.
great point that you made. So I'm very glad that you brought that up with us. So
Of course.
Shambria, why don't you tell the audience how can they contact you in case they want to continue this discussion with you?
Yes, you can email me at shambriastall@s1catl.org. Is that it? I think that's
Yes.
it. shambriastall@s1catl.org. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email. If you're interested in services, I can email you our intake packet, or you can find us at Someone Cares ATL.
S1catl.org.
Yes, just Google Someone Cares Atlanta. It's the first
It
one.
comes up. Mhm.
Got you so much. Any final thoughts, Saisha?
No, just I appreciate you coming. If I needed therapy for my kids and it wasn't an ethical issue, I would definitely send them straight to you. You'd be my
I,
number one choice.
I might call you just to get some more advice on handling some things with these middle schoolers. I don't know if this has happened to you, Aisha, but my daughter has been asked out on dates by
Mine
two
too.
other 7th grade boys.
Mhm.
I'm like, what you mean a date? A date to
Ooh.
do what? How is he gonna pick you up? You a date? What
That's
do you
your
mean date?
job.
What's a date? How do 7th graders date? I don't get that. So I might hit you up, or we're inviting you back, to the show about handling those type of
Absolutely.
situations. But
I
thank
would
you for
love that.
joining us, and
Thank you for
everybody else.
having me.
Yeah, join us every Thursday evening at 7:00. We're going to be in the same place, Our Black Media Network. You've been watching Two Therapists and a Microphone. I am Dr. Harrison Davis.
And I'm Dr. Aisha Dickerson.
We will see you guys next week.